Welcome to Worlds, the podcast where we explore all the layers that constitute an identity and their ongoing evolution. Today I have the pleasure of being with Boris Eldagsen, an artist who studied philosophy, loves to explore the grand questions of human existence, who believes in a collective subconscious and in archetypes. After art school, his first creative chapter focused on drawing and paintings. You will correct me if any of these are not right. But then you turned towards photography, and today your name is most often associated with promptography, a new art form, which also means a new identity. So that's why I'm very interested. But let's hear all of it from you. Thank you for being here with me and us, the listeners, today. First of all, how are you doing?
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'm fine. I just returned from Paris Photo, which is like the most important and biggest art fair for photography, and met many people there I know from photography and also from the new establishing AI scene.
Yes. And what did you like the most about this event?
Well,
If you like.
in photography, there's always something to discover. Yeah, strong work. And right now, the conversation about AI in the photography world has started. It's later than I hoped for, but it's kicking off. And I think there is still a lot of work to do, because right now, many institutions that come from photography, they show AI, but they don't talk about the differences. What is the strength of photography? What can only photography do? And what is the strength of AI? What can only AI do? And this is the reason why I'm going to curate an exhibition in Berlin next March to talk about these things, because so far nobody else does.
Do you think that this is due to some sort of fear of not being ready to have the conversation, the fear of being replaced? Like, how do you explain this refusal?
I think to be able to talk about, you need to know both very well. And I think most photography institutions or curators and directors, they don't have a hands-on experience with AI. And only when you're working with those tools on a regular basis, you understand it on a deeper level and you can identify those strengths. Right now, for most people, it seems to be able to create images that look like photography. And for some, it's another step in the evolution of photography. But for me, it's a new tool. Yeah? It is not attached to any medium. It is encompassing all kind of mediums. Anything that was digital as a file can be generated today and has become training data for AI.
And I read that you can either start with an image or just from your mind, something you saw in your head. And I see that you talk a lot about visual poetry and dreams. So it seems that it was a form of art that was really made for someone like you, no? How did this, because I feel like there's a love story now.
Yes.
How did this come to be? Like, what were the first steps of you falling in love with it?
Well, I think what I did before was leading me to working with AI. I see many similarities to drawing, where you can also work from your imagination. And if a certain part is not right, you erase it and start again. Painting, it's the same. And this is what I love about it. I can work purely from my imagination, but the result looks like a photograph, can look like a photograph. It can also look like drawing, painting, 3D, whatever. And what I also like about it is that it's freedom from material restrictions. In photography, I always had to look at the budget, to find the right location, to find the right model. Do I have the right technology? And what I was doing was staged. So for 30, 35 years, I was mainly doing stage photography. And that also prepared me for working with AI, because I had to define every little element in the image. And with the AI, I'm doing the same. But what we see now, like 2 years after the rise of diffusion models, that we will have a multitude of prompt strategies in the future. Everything we digitalized in the 90s, every file format can be training data and prompt material. That means text and image and video and sound. Right now, the two main ways of generating images is with text or existing images. But in the future, we will also be able to upload a sound and have an image generated from it. And what I also see is that the options become more and more. Where in the beginning, you predominantly worked with text and you had to describe a look of an image, you have shortcuts today. You just upload existing images as reference material. And then you say, I want a new image to look like this, to have this kind of a light situation, or to have this character, or you can copy the whole composition. And that means to get to a certain result, you can now choose several strategies, and they will become more in the future. But what I also see is that the role of the creative working with AI is shifting again. In the last 2 years, my main description was I'm working like a director or like a conductor, deciding upon all of those things. And I think since early summer, late spring, you see a shift happening with AI platforms trying to get rid of text prompting. For many, it's too complex. Now you can tick a box, enhance prompt, and the AI does something. It doesn't even show you what it has changed. And many people use it. And the second change is that all the new features that are released are related to working with images as material and as reference. So I'm not a conductor or director anymore. I'm creating a visual cocktail. Yeah, I'm like a mixologist in the bar, and behind me in bottles is the history of image making. And then it's just about blending, certain flavors, or you could say styles and aesthetics, and you take 70% of style A and 20% of style B and 10% of style C for a certain purpose, for a certain audience. And my prediction is that this is going to be the dominant way of working with AI.
But it's also very interesting because I read that you also talk about the surprises that can come sometimes of what the AI does. And right now, it's like you have a partner in the AI that is collectively being trained. So I love that for someone like you who's interested in the collective subconscious. So there is a partner that everyone is playing with that is today maybe considered a child that is growing in capacity, and you're playing tennis with it, you're co-creating. And so I just love the fact that you don't know what you can create with AI today and what you can create with it tomorrow. So you're like making a recipe, but isn't it a little different than having those bottles? Because the bottles are like chemicals that are evolving also. It's like more of a biological, ever-changing resource that you have in your hands, right?
There's a different way in working. I think if you are using existing images as references, it is a big copyright problem because where do those images come from that I'm uploading And all the AI platforms offer these features now, and sometimes a link is enough. By doing this, you can see that the copyright problem and the responsibility is shifting away from the companies to the single users. And it's no accident that this is happening. Yeah. So the companies are still trying to solve the problem of the training data. Have they been allowed to source it from the internet or not? But they also very strategically offer the new tools in a way that the responsibility is on the side of the single user. And if I work with text, I can be very experimental, and I can do something that I don't know what the result is going to be. I still believe that there's a huge potential in text prompting that people don't use. And working with images might be a shortcut in a commercial sense, but I think in an artistic sense, for me, it's not so interesting. Because what I see in the creative process is I have 3 different steps. The prompting, the generating, and the evaluation. And the first step and the last step is mine. And the more I know, the more background knowledge I have, the more informed the prompt is going to be, and the evaluation. So I'm working here with my skills and experience. And for me, as a single person, I connect my subjectivity with the collective unconscious of the training data in step 1 and 3. It's going to be outsourced in the future. And this is what we see with text prompting being outsourced. But if I do so, what do I get? I get a statistical average. And in my artistic practice, I want to work around this. I want to have my subjectivity in there.
But what do you mean outsourced?
Well, you tick a box and you say enhance prompt, and then you don't need to think about complex prompting. And you could also in the future, I think, tick a box, and then the AI is evaluating the outcome and making you a suggestion of how to fine-tune the prompt and what to change. Those things will happen. It's the structure has been foreseen. There's already a placeholder standing there.
It's for people who are not like you, who don't have all this history and knowledge of experimenting with art, imagining what you see in your head. But then if we imagine tomorrow there are 2 different levels of tools, like one for the common people who want to play but don't have your skills, and maybe other tools that develop for people like you. But will it still be fun for you knowing that you separated from, but I guess the main data source will still be the same. It's just the front user experience. So you will still be in the same pool, I guess.
But it has been like this with all other tools. If you talk about writing, anyone can write. If you talk about photographing, everybody can photograph, but not all photographers are artists.
Exactly.
So it's the same with AI, but I think those shortcuts are going to be used in commercial jobs. For sure.
Yeah, it has started already. And I think you were in marketing before, and now you stopped doing these types of other jobs to support your art. How did that decision come? Was it just you don't need it anymore, or?
Well, I studied art because I wanted to be an artist, and I had a compromise with my parents doing a teaching degree. So I also studied philosophy, which I was interested in, and I did the whole studies and all the things you need to do afterwards to start as a high school teacher in those topics. But I didn't want to be a teacher. I wanted to be an artist. And when I finished my studies, late 90s, shortly before 2000, the internet evolved. And a friend of mine showed it to me, and I was hooked from the very first moment. and I just loved it. And when the new economy came, nobody was like prepared, or nobody studied relevant subjects, so you could enter sideways, and I did. And it was just because I loved working with it. And then I was growing into doing certain things. I saw the economy evolving. I survived the first big implosion, and then saw how jobs were more and more specified. So what I was doing in the end was either strategy or ideas for content or pitches. And in the beginning, everything was one. You even did use HTML to change certain looks in the back end, and you did what you called UX today. So I saw this developing, and it was supporting me for 20 years, and I was doing it on and off. So I usually had a job per month, 3 or 5 days, and the rest of the time I was doing my art practice. And because I was the first of this digital agency generation, when the pandemic came and all those jobs were put on hold, I was questioning myself, how do I continue? Do I like to continue to work in this field or not? Because I've been doing that for over 20 years, and the majority of people working in agencies is like 25. So that was a big question for me. And then after the pandemic, when AI started, I had a déjà vu. I realized it's exactly like at the end of the 90s. It's big, it's disruptive, and there is no proper education at the moment. And I just loved working with it. So by the end of 22, I decided to cancel all jobs that I've been doing before and only do AI. And I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, and I love the synthesis of it all, because I was telling myself when I'm reading the captions in your Instagram posts that I love that I can first look at the images. For example, I love the purgatory images from your, it's Pixel, what's the name of the exhibition?
Pixel Perceptions.
Yeah, Pixel Perceptions, and I really loved it. And I love to first feel it and write my own story in my head, and then I like to look at what you wrote. And not many artists give such clear explanations on what they were exploring there. And I often feel a bit frustrated because I did my own game. I looked and I thought, and then I like to compare. Maybe it's because you did study some teaching that today you're not only the teaching and the philosophy, both I feel, give you this capacity of exposing, explaining, building a bridge between the viewer and maybe also, not maybe actually, like all the work you're doing right now on educating people on AI. So somehow it seems to come full circle.
Yeah.
And how do you feel like your work in the agency world is helping today with the current, let's say, transformation with AI?
Well, I think everything is intertwined here. What I did in the 20 years working with agencies was always to look at new tools, new features that you could use for marketing. So that gave me the technological background. And what I'm doing right now is is having 3 parts. One part is constantly learning and exploring AI tools myself. I read newsletters like an hour a day. I try out all the main features for my own art practice. And then I'm teaching it, which gives me a deeper understanding of what I'm doing and also helps my art practice. And that gives me ideas. What am I doing here? Where is this going to lead to? What do we need to talk about to be prepared for the future collaboration between man and machine? And this is what I do as a keynote speaker. And all of these 3 things are connected. So I can't cut one of them out. All of them need a lot of time. And I wish it would be possible to have, less work and more free time.
Yeah.
But I think that combination is, my DNA and why people invite me.
Yeah, and can you share with us maybe some of your favorite newsletters that you like to follow?
Of course. I think one of the most comprehensive for me is coming out of Germany. It's called The Decoder. And you can get it in German and in English.
Okay.
And that is very, very compressed and comprehensive news about anything related to AI. And that is my favorite newsletter. Because all the other newsletters you get are often just endless lists
Yes.
of links, often done with AI, and Just give me a second. I have a dog here who is making noise with something that's on the floor. I need to get it. Yeah. So it's the neighbor's dog.
And do you feel like you are currently in Germany, right?
I'm based in Germany, but I'm working internationally. Yeah.
Yes.
I have been flying around the world this year like I've never done before, and I do many talks online as well.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like in different countries there are different levels, or is there kind of a same rhythm around internationally on this topic?
I think the level of understanding or misunderstanding and the questions are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter if you're in Europe or in Canada or in Argentina or in Australia.
Mm-hmm. And how do you feel about, because you're warning a lot about like we need to talk about these things, and what I like is that you have a acceptance of the complexity of the approach. It's not just good or bad. It's not just like we're not just here to prepare people to the dangers. We're like, let's look into what's good and let's look into what we need to be handling so that the machine doesn't use us and we use the machine. Something I wanted to talk to you about, something I felt that made me a little bit sad. It's like, I feel like there's not just the topic of AI, there's the topic of social media plus AI. And on social media, something I love to do is follow nature photographers, because it's my little moment of, oh, wow, look at what nature did. And like have this reconnect with beauty and life and existence. But more and more, I have these photography or images, I'm sorry, made with AI that you don't immediately understand whether this is a beautiful bird. It's like clickbait imagery on feeding on the fact that people liked looking at nature images. But now you're like, I'm not sure. And so it's kind of killing the joy for me, because now I even doubt on the beauties of nature. How do you feel about these types of things, like the mixture, the pouring in? Is it just because we're immature, or how do you imagine the future of social media on these topics?
Yeah, just a second until my wife just got home with our dog, so I see how those two dogs are happening. Just a second.
It's okay.
Sorry. So, talking about the images of nature, I think you have two different groups of people that produce those images. Those who generate images, for them, it's just about the result and using the result for a certain purpose. Yeah, you said clickbait. And I think what nature photographers do is they really love nature. And for them, the process is part of what they create. Yeah, you need to be out there.
Yeah.
You are seeing, feeling nature, animals. You are present. And that relates to the image. So the image is just like the full stop after the sentence of somebody going into nature. So these are two different types of people. Yeah, what they do, why they do it, and but I see the problem that the internet and what we are going to find there, the future of the internet is AI generated. And the predictions differ how long it's going to take until 90% of the internet is generated. Is it 2 years, 5 years? Will it be faster? And what does it mean for us? Where is it going to lead us? Because all the information we get and our lives and communications are happening on screens, but we can't trust what we see on screens anymore. And it doesn't matter if it's sound, image, video, also live. Yeah, we are having tools now where you and I doing a live stream, I could have a different voice, I could have a different face. And ironically enough, Sam Altman from OpenAI has a side business called Human ID. Have you heard about this?
No.
Well, he thinks ahead for sure. Where he is looking for a way to create a human passport for people interacting in the internet, so you can be sure that the other person is a human and not a bot, not an AI. Yeah. And his suggestion of how we get there is to have our iris scanned, our eyeballs, which for most countries is legally no-go. But they want to scan people's eyes, and then you get this digital ID, and it only shows that you are human. It doesn't show your true identity, but the company knows your true identity. So it is for sure a strategy to fight against an internet that is completely AI generated. But these things are exactly what I've said before. Nobody takes this into account. Nobody thinks about the meaning and the impact of it now. Yeah, most people, if they talk about AI, they think, am I going to lose my job, or where did it got the training data from? But the impact is much larger. What is going to happen to the internet, our main mean of communication? How is it going to change us? Yeah, smartphones and the internet changed our lives dramatically in how we interact with each other. How many hours are we spending looking at screens? So the impact of AI on our human behavior is something that is completely, unknown. Nobody can predict it.
Yeah, and it's, I feel like something else that is really in mind, and I think a lot for women, is what if my face is used for like porn or things like that? And I read this July, I think, on New York Times, some women, right before they go into politics, suddenly all their family and friends receive videos of them like in tough postures, like things they don't want to be seen with. And sometimes I go very much further immediately in my mind of, okay, where does this lead us? And I kind of have a weird hope of maybe the AI might, like this chaos, may train us into giving up on the visual egos that we have. Like, because at some point, like nowadays, like we're seeing so many horrific things happening to women in the Middle East, and like, yeah, we have like breasts and butts and like whatever, and we can't get over it. Like, we're still so primitive in the approach of our bodies and what it means and who it is. And I'm feeling this fast-paced evolution that we seem to not be able to totally control or stop. Maybe at the end of it, it will just make us accept that, well, yeah, this face might appear doing stuff and we can't ever really trust that it is it. So maybe we will focus more on what's being said, what's being done. I don't know. How do you see this evolution about, like, now the topic is really our visual identities. Like, do you think we will have to give up on it at some point, or will we be able to protect it at some point? Because even when you talk about human ID, I'm thinking, well, today the iris, maybe the AI can't copy it, but at some point I'm sure that it will learn how to show an iris.
Yeah, but this is not how it works. It's you get this like digital passport, like a watermark from the company that you are human. They are checking it.
Okay.
But deep fakes have become so easy to produce. There's nothing you can do against it. Yeah, you just need one kind of passport headshot. That's enough, and you can even get it from the internet. And if you find an image from the internet that has low resolution, you upscale it with AI. There's nothing you can do against it, and it's going to lead us into, and we are already in it, a kind of like post-truth reality, post-reality, where on one hand, those fakes are not as dangerous as they have been in the past. Because in the past, where it was easier to fake, it was more convincing for people that this has really happened. Today, anyone can say it's all fake, it never happened, like Donald Trump has been doing for years. And that means even if you have authentic photography that shows something, that people should talk about, where a politician or somebody else is doing something wrong, that wrongdoer can hide behind the argument, oh, it's all fake, wasn't me. So it leaves us all in doubt what has happened, what is generated. It's going to be a big problem for democracies. So how can you fight it?
Yeah. I guess investigative journalism is going to have a big comeback because we're going to need that blue check next to each article showing that someone did a thorough research for months.
Yes and no. But in Germany, we have an umbrella organization of photographers, German Photo Council, and we have a working group on AI, and we had many calls and sessions with the press in Germany, with editors. And yes, journalism is important for me as a citizen. It's one of the very essential parts of checks and balances in democracies. But the press is really under attack from all sides because the rise of the internet destroyed their financial model. The main source of information today is social media, but the high quality press content is not happening in social media anymore. It's behind paywalls. So what we see, is already a low level of information, for free. And how many people are paying, to get behind the paywalls? So that means editors and publishing houses constantly have struggled to survive. And so do anyone working for them. If you work with or talk to press photographers, photojournalists, they love their work, but they paid badly. And 2 years ago, I did a lot of online talks for one of the German photo associations. And I remember that I was shocked to learn that a photographer got 600 euros for a portrait of the German chancellor on the cover of Spiegel, which is like the top level publication in Germany. How many of those jobs do you get per month? It's not enough to pay all expenses. And that means that photojournalists already for years have been doing a multitude of jobs to survive because photojournalism is not enough. They do product photography, commercial photography, and those jobs are disappearing because most of those images are generated now and the competition becomes higher. So this is also a problem for the future. And how can we help journalism to survive in these times without touching the freedom of free speech? Is a problem. And what to do with this information, it's a problem. But there are some suggestions. But at the end, it comes down to the decision makers, to the politicians, what they would like to change or not.
Yeah.
In Germany, there was a foundation of Bertelsmann, one of the big media companies, and the German Citizen Council that invited anyone to contribute with ideas. What can we do to fight disinformation? Yeah? I was one of 200,000 that handed in ideas. And the results were handed over to the Minister of Inner Affairs in September, and there were some very good suggestions. So one aspect was fact-checking of politicians, that you can really see, which politician did spread which kind of fakes, doing the same for the press as well. Of course, then it comes back to education in schools, and what age do you start to prepare next generation to how to use media. And this is often shocking. Well, I did my teaching degree. That meant for 2 years I was like a young teacher in school. That was 2000, before 2000. At that time in Germany, there was a debate, do we need a new subject? Media literacy. It never happened. And because of that, it's like 25 years ago now, so many people could have learned that you shouldn't trust all the shit you see in the internet. And I think this would have also affected the votes that we have right now. And another one of the suggestions was to redesign social media. And this is something which I believe in for a long time. The main engine of this information is social media, and AI is just a new super fuel. But how do you redesign it? I think the strongest move would be to force social media companies to give up their advertising model. Exactly. And to go to subscription, because then the targeting is gone, and you can force those companies to change things. I was in Canada in May, and Meta and the Canadian state disagree on what to do with content that comes from the press. So the Canadian state would like journalists to be remunerated. Meta doesn't want to. So as a consequence, if you are in Canada and have a Canadian IP, you can't share content from the press. And that is something that Meta had to adjust to.
Yeah, it would be more like a Netflix model, right? It's like you have a big platform that pays money for the content creators.
Yeah. And I think after 25 years of social media, I've been working with it forever. I really think it needs to be done in order to preserve democracies.
Yes.
Because it's used by negative forces too often. And if that is changed, it's they will have problems of reaching an audience in the future. But also the way how content is shared. Some suggestions are that every time you share content, there's a pop-up reminding you, do you know where it's coming from? Do you think it's fake or not? Or to delay sharing stuff for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. But something needs to be done. And the companies don't like to hear it, of course.
What you're saying also makes me think a little of, do you know the app Yuka? I don't know if it exists elsewhere than France, but it's an app that evaluates the quality of a food brand. Like behind it, you have multiple criteria, and you can check if it's healthy, where it comes from. And I feel like content creators could have this type of evaluation. How often have they been caught doing deepfake? How often do they fact check or things like that? Of course, the problem is also that it's so easy to create a new account and create content, and you can't just keep following and tracking that. But yeah, we definitely need something that makes sure everything's goal is not to make money, because as soon as that's it, then our behavior just shifts towards it. I'm curious, for someone who has been interested in like the human subconscious so much, like what are the main things that were moments of, oh, I have to take note of this thing that I analyze? Like, what are the things that your art path has taught you about our human collective subconscious? I know it's a very big question, but whatever you would love to talk about, like that comes to your mind.
How do I respond to it? Well, I think just the way art is perceived and how people define art is often so different to how I do it. For me, art is an expression of the human condition, and that means looking at an artwork, it's not a question that you should ask yourself, what does the artist want to tell me? If I would like to tell you something, I write an essay. Yes. I think, and I think this approach to art is completely wrong. And I also see it in mainstream contemporary art, that it has become more and more activist, that artists want to tell you something, but then it goes about a certain problem, a certain political, social problem. But I want to go deeper. Yeah, what is the root of those problems that we all have? And that's the human condition. So where does it all come from? And then the artwork for me is an invitation to an inner journey. And so the better questions to ask yourself is, what do I feel? What do I think? What emotions and memories are triggered? Am I attracted or appalled by the artwork? And this is also something that I miss in contemporary art, because most of it is about having a certain position on a certain political topic, but that's it. But for me, it should dig deeper, and an artwork for me is somehow between beauty and disturbance. And for some people, if they cannot put you in a certain political box, and the work is disturbing, it's too much. I've recently, like the exhibition you mentioned in Netherlands, Pixel Perceptions, 30 artists are shown, and I'm the only artist with a trigger warning. And my artwork should have been shown in the church, and then later they were moved to a back room of the gallery, which was unrenovated. It added something to the feeling, but it was a very tiny floor. So they could put the trigger warning on the entry. And then I thought, when did this happen? that in the arts you need a trigger warning, and what does it tell us about all the other artworks being shown? And what I also don't like about the arts is that when you enter, and you said it before, you read a description by the curator, and then that description is forcing you to see the artwork through the eyes of the curator, not through your own. And I would love institutions to change that, so to allow you to enter the exhibition without information and have the information at the end.
Yes.
So you have your personal journey, and then you can combine it with,
I had imagined the hider of the text box, actually, because I always have that too. And even like when I watch movies nowadays and there are subtitles, sometimes a subtitle comes before the person actually says the thing, and I'm like, oh no, like I didn't want to know that before they said it. And it's the exact same thing. I think there is a real need in terms of experience design in the spaces where we have art. And as someone who has not yet 20, but 15 years in advertisement too, I have always this feeling like, oh, we can improve the content approach to these things and how we learn. But yeah, so I So you're telling us that it's the human condition that expresses itself. And I saw also your piece, it's called Ambiphobia, I think, about like
Yes.
wanting to look at it, but also
Yeah.
like wanting not to look at it.
Yeah.
What makes you so interested in this duality?
Because I just think it's part of life, and I'm still working on it to get this duality into the artworks, and also to integrate it in myself. I think what I said before, like artwork is somewhere between beauty and disturbance, and can also be like very deep and serious, but also there can be humor. Yeah. So the ideal artwork would combine all of this. But in the past, I'm always more to one side or the other. So it's a lifelong project that I'm working on. And what I like about the old days of psychology of Carl Gustav Jung is the idea of a shadow. And psychology today has moved away from it. Yeah, it's much more scientific. Yeah, you can measure all different activities in the brain, and I know about this because my wife is a neuropsychologist. But I still like the old idea of Jung, of the shadow, which is all the negative aspects of our personality or of mankind, and we can either deny it, and if we see it in somebody else, it really makes us angry. Or we accept it and try to integrate it to become one as a person, and that is our task in our lives, yeah, to integrate it somehow. And I don't know if you know the work of Roger Bellin. He's an American photographer based in South Africa. He's 20 years older than I am. And I loved his work for a very long time. Yeah, some people know it because they know the band Die Antwoord. And there's the video, I Think You Freaky. That is also Roger Bellin. And often people come to Roger and say, oh, your work is so dark. And then he responds and he says, well, these are people that have not confronted their own shadow yet. Yeah, because I also see a lot of humor in what he does. So this is something that I'm trying to do in my work. Yeah, talking about those shadows, and looking away doesn't help.
You were talking about a post-reality era, but in a way, this is bringing reality back. I feel, because trying to just over beautify something, just see the admirable aspect of something. Yeah. Doesn't make it true either. So yeah, it's more truth. Yeah.
It's a psychological approach that I have. Yeah. And I think it is also something that makes it easier to communicate, to connect with others, and it gives something to other people. I recently was a jury member in a competition for AI images, and I looked at 320 images. And for me, just 20 of them would have been art. And most of them were just cliches. With AI, you can combine stuff like a man having a fish head. But why? What for? The strongest work for me was the work of a female photographer who has multiple sclerosis. And what she tried to put in the image is, how does it feel when you are losing control over your body, which you do in an MS attack? And it really touched me. It gave me much more. She helped me to feed it through her body. And that was much more direct and effective than looking at a list of symptoms. And I think this is the strength of AI, that you can show inner realities. When you are working with AI, you can do an inner journey. because everything that you would like to have on this image needs to be defined by you or can be defined by you. But then you need to be conscious and aware of yourself. What kind of image would I like to produce and why? And what are my references? What kind of compositions? Most people don't do. And this is why you have so many cliched works that are influenced by Hollywood movies, for example.
Yeah. And what part of your personal shadow do you feel like you're expressing through your art, if you're comfortable talking about it?
Well, it is the belief that we as humans have the potential to everything that is good and bad, and that we need to be aware of that shadow side, and that we need to accept it and integrate it.
But that's more your belief, no? Sorry.
Yeah, that's my belief. Yeah, and integrating means not in a negative way. It's not like I should walk around the world and do everything good and bad that's possible.
Yeah.
But psychologically, negative sides are often an exaggeration of something that could be used for good. Yeah, if you have, for example, someone or a trait that is aggressive, very aggressive. Yeah, in its 200% aggressiveness, it's negative. But if you take it as a rule where you say, okay, it can also mean I'm defending myself, yeah, and I'm not saying yes to everything that people want from me, then it's a positive trait.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean with integrating, finding those negative traits that are often like an exaggeration of something that is positive. And I think if we try to accept this and use this impulse in this positive sense, yeah, then we have become one as a person. If we don't do so, and if we say, "Oh, I hate this part of mine," then it's like the theater of life, and where we are actors is split up in different personalities, and the aggressive person is locked in a room under the stage, but it's going to make noise down there.
Yeah. This makes me think, I don't know if you've seen the movie Lee with Kate Winslet.
Not yet.
Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but that's not a spoiler. Her character makes me think of what you just said, because it's a woman who can get angry, who can just say tough stuff. But at the end of the movie, I was thinking, yeah, well, that type of temperament with a purpose becomes a great force. That
Yes.
temperament without a purpose can just be an angry person. And this is something I think very, very valuable, because indeed we oversimplify people and their characters often, just saying this is a good person, this is a bad person, or things like that. And maybe I see time running. There is one question I really like to ask everyone, which is, when you were a kid, what was play for you? Like, because I love to see if there's connections between who you became and your first most natural way of entertaining yourself. Like, what was that for you?
I was always a child that could easily spend time on his own. Yeah? I was reading a lot, I was drawing a lot, and yeah, I never felt lonely. What is funny is that the stuff I did in the first years of school and kindergarten, my mom still has somewhere. And you know that as a child, you do these papier-mâché puppets, yeah, hand puppets. And I don't know, I think I must have been 8 years, 9 years or so, and she still has it, and it's a vampire.
It was all the imagination in you already making up characters, stories, or was it working the element that you liked?
I don't know. I was reading so many books and normal children books. Yeah, I just I don't know. I did like vampires, and I
Oh,
also real
vampires. I heard
no no
Empire.
vampires, and I
Okay.
also know that at some times when what was it? My parents were going somewhere, and they were taking me to the grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
and she put me in front of the TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that time we only had like 3 TV stations in
Mm-hmm.
Germany. And in one of them, they had old American movies from the
Mm-hmm.
30s. So the early Hammer Studio, Frankenstein, and monster movies. I did like it. I did like it a lot with the black and white. And I think what I'm doing with AI now is black and white. Yeah?
Yes.
And some of those movies are reflected. I
Mm-hmm.
also started to photograph with black and white and wanted to return to it for a decade. And now I'm doing it with AI, and it also creates something else because I don't know anyone else that works with AI and only does black and white stuff. Most
Mm-hmm.
people really indulge in colors as
Yeah, that's
bright as
true.
possible.
That's true. I love it because there is this, it is a live moment happening. And also the vampire, because I read that you like to work during the night. So maybe your inner vampire is here with us
Yes.
also.
Yeah, but it's a different reason. Well, I often felt comfortable at night, and B, artistically, it solved the problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
For 20 years, I was photographing at daytime, and often if you live in a big city like Berlin, it's just too much. Yeah,
Yeah.
too much advertising, too much everything.
Mm-hmm.
And at night, um, it's more concentrated, and I
Mm-hmm.
started to work like a moth. So I see a certain light situation that works for me, and this is how the image starts to build. It's
Mm-hmm.
then a stage, and then I have the light and the place, which is perfect, and I wait for something to happen. And then I'm more like waiting and hunting for somebody to enter the stage. And then
Mm-hmm.
life is always surprising me, and I often couldn't predict what was happening. And
Mm-hmm.
to force this later, I was going at events where a lot of stuff was happening. So I didn't need to wait too long for somebody to enter that space. And I liked working like this. Oh, that was great.
Yeah, that's like waiting for there to be enough space and enough life, not overcrowded, like the perfect condition. And maybe one last word on what you're currently excited about in your own storytelling. Like, is there a specific topic you're choosing to focus more on?
Well, the topic is always the same. It's more like the tools that are constantly, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
expanding. And I really love to work with moving images now. I've done it since the mid 90s, and it
Mm-hmm.
came out of my photography. That at certain moments in time, I had ideas for movement, yeah, for
Mm-hmm.
some kind of action. And now with AI, I can work purely from my imagination. That's
Mm-hmm.
fun. Yeah, this is something which I enjoy exploring. And now you have first tools that allow you to use dialogue, which
Mm-hmm.
wasn't possible before. And next step would be to go into 3D.
Yeah.
Do you want us to record this again because of the dog?
No, I think it
It
adds some
adds,
truth to it.
yeah,
Real life.
but now my wife is dog walking. Yeah,
Oh no, but it
yeah,
was funny for me, even the moment where you had to go for them.
yeah.
And so we called promptography when it's images. How do we call it when you're making film
The
with AI?
same.
Okay.
Everything is from promptography. It's just creating something with prompts, and the
Mhm.
prompt can be text, image, sound, moving image, and
Mhm.
also what you create can be any of those. And this is why I thought promptography is a much better term it zooms out of the photography bubble, yeah, and it gives us a broader perspective that it's not just about photography. It's not
a new playground.
It's not another step of photography, yeah. It's another step for anything creative.
Okay, well, I loved all of this conversation. And do you plan to come to Luxembourg for conferences, maybe, or should we make it happen?
Make it happen.
Okay, I will take this as a personal challenge, because I think I could listen to you for hours, and I will keep an eye on everything else you'll be doing. But I'm so thankful for your time. And
my pleasure.
Is there any last thing you would like to say before we say bye?
I think, no, that's it at a point. But talking about Luxembourg, it's not that far away. Like I come from that part between Saarbrücken and Kaiserslautern. And my brother is working next to Trier. So
okay, we can make this happen. There
it's
will be
close.
Thank you so much. Take care of yourself, and have a nice day.
Yes, thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.